Good morning, YouTube. I hope you had a wonderful week with your students. This week, we're talking all things parent meetings. I know in the past I've posted about how I use different organizers for parent-teacher conferences, but this video is different because this video is about when parents ask to have a meeting with you where it isn't necessarily scheduled by your school. So we're not talking about the typical parent-teacher conferences where parents would sign up for a particular slot to meet with you. Instead, we're talking about when parents want to meet with you regarding their students' progress. In this week's video, I will share some strategies that I use to help facilitate the conversation, to help your student and parents feel supported in their quest to help find student success. As it comes as no surprise, tip number one is to prepare. You want to make the best use of your time with the parent, and so you want to make sure that you have printed out all the necessary reports and data that you need or that you might potentially need to reference during your meeting. Having the data right at your fingertips is really important instead of spending time kind of searching through the data and looking at the information. I print everything out from missing assignment reports to grade reports to even any kind of attendance reports. All of those things can be incredibly valuable. Another thing that you could potentially do is print out some of the data of the student maybe seeking extra help. So if you've been logging extra help, you can print out the information for the times and dates that they attend. Anything that you feel would be beneficial. I think it's really important that you print out this data because you want to be able to back up your claims. So these are things that maybe you are looking at areas for growth that the student needs to work on, or maybe it's a strength that the student has. Having the data at your fingertips can really support the claims that you're making. Tip number two when having a parent meeting is to make it about the student. Now, I know this sounds so obvious, but I think whenever we're asked to have a meeting with a parent that isn't normally during scheduled conferences, we often kind of look inward and say to ourselves, like, what did we do wrong? Like, why does a parent want to meet with me? It's always important to put this on the student. It's about their education, right? You as a teacher, you are making the best instructional decisions possible for your student. Your students are getting a wonderful education, and it's incredibly important that you push that ownership off to the student. It's about their success and their ability to be successful in your class. I also think that a lot of times when parents are directing questions, it really needs to be about what the student thinks and what the student feels. So when you're having a meeting, it's imperative that the student is actually present there. I do not have any meetings unless the student is there. It's very important that we're all on the same page. We don't want, for example, me to say something during a meeting with the parents and then the parents relay something different back to the student, or vice versa. I mean, obviously it's a high stress situation and sometimes things can get changed around a little bit or taken out of context. So I think it's really important that the student is there so that everyone is in agreement and that everyone is on the same page with a plan of action. Now, this kind of leads into my third tip. Let's talk about observations versus interpretations. Chances are we talk about this with our science students too. But it's always important to stick to the facts. Try to avoid interpretations if at all possible. So for example, if I printed out my data sheet, my record sheet of the student leaving class, and I say, well, this student leaves to go to the bathroom between this time and this time, pretty much 4 out of 5 days of the week. That's different than saying, well, the student just doesn't really want to be in class or doesn't seem like they want to be in class. There's a very different messages being sent there, right? There's the observation and then there's the interpretation of that behavior. It's always good to start with the observation first and then follow up, well, maybe like, why are you going to the bathroom so much? And see what the student says. So focus on the data, focus on the information that's in front of you, and that can definitely help build some support for any potential interpretations that you might mention during your conference. Tip number 4 is another one of those obvious tips, definitely making sure that you're spending more time listening as opposed to talking. I know when I get nervous, I tend to just go on and on and on. And I really have to focus myself before the meeting and say, just listen to the parents, listen to the students, and then you can offer your thoughts and ideas about the situation. It's important that you listen and ask questions. So don't be afraid to say, could you elaborate a little bit more about that? Or why do you think that? The more questions you ask, the better, because then you have more of an understanding about what the student needs, what the parent expectations are. The final tip that I want to offer you is so important, especially to those new teachers out there. And hear me loud and clear. If you feel you might need support during a parent meeting, it's imperative that you ask for it. So what does that mean? Well, there have been plenty of meetings I've sat in on that I was not necessarily comfortable meeting with the parent, whether I felt a little threatened or maybe the parent email was a little aggressive or just the tone wasn't appropriate. There is nothing wrong with asking your supervisor to sit in on the meeting with you. They don't even have to say anything, but to have the supervisor or VP or principal sit in on a meeting with you is really their job. It's their job to support you. And so if you need some support, please, I encourage you, ask a supervisor, even if you have a lead teacher that's available, maybe somebody that's in a lead teacher role. Here at my school, a lot of the teachers don't have their own classroom. So in the past, they asked if, I could potentially just be in the room, organizing and doing whatever it is I need to do, make myself busy while they're having the meeting. And of course, obviously, the teacher would email and say, just so you know, we share classrooms here, so there might be another teacher in the room, but, she's another teacher, and obviously she knows that this needs to be confidential. So there is absolutely nothing wrong for asking for support if you feel threatened, if you feel like the email tone isn't exactly what it should be. Guidance counselors are also a wonderful support. So if you have a guidance counselor of the student and they're available, to ask them to sit in on a 15-minute meeting, again, that's part of their job. They need to be spending time being able to work with parents and students and kind of bridge that gap. Those are 5 tips that I live and die by for my parent meetings. I think it makes a huge difference in the time that you spend talking with parents and students. I think it really helps to make the best use of your time, and it also shows your professionalism and your preparedness and your commitment to helping your student be successful. I hope this video was helpful in giving some inspiration to you for how you can conduct and prepare for your parent meetings. As always, I welcome your feedback. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll be sure to check in with you very soon.